1490 WGCH. And it's time for the weekly wrap with Kerry Lutz and Ty Andros. For more information, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com or tedbits.com. And the man with the answers, the person who wraps up better than anyone else, even a clerk at Macy's and Christmas, it's Ty Andros. Ty, how are you?
Good. How are you today, sir?
Good, good. So you're back home?
I'm back home,
Well, for what home is now anyway.
at least
So,
for another day or two.
so what's happening?
Oh, it was a very interesting week, Carrie. This is about the 14th fire drill, or 15th, or 20th, but we've really had some activity going on in Italy and Spain, and this one's not going to be as easy to paper over just because of the nature of it. And I put together some slides for our audience, and you have them, and they'll be posted with our commentary.
Yep, we're going to put it on there as an attachment. I'm just converting it to a PDF file now. My assistant is, and they will be up there. So, important stuff, though, huh?
Well, Carrie, I don't know how much our listeners know about what went on with Greece, but when all of it was said and done, basically all the private bondholders got screwed, and all the banks and IMF and ECB and European Investment Bank got 100 cents on the dollar.
Sounds like GM and Chrysler all over again, huh?
Exactly. But the bottom line of it all was that everybody that was a private bondholder of Greek debt became subordinated to government entities. And whereas the LTRO brought some temporary relief, they've run out of LTRO to spend on worthless Spanish and Italian bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And really, starting, let me get you the date, right around the end of December, we see basically, once everyone figured out what was going on, um, nobody is outside of Spain is rolling their notes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if you remember the movie Rollover from the early 70s, and it was about Middle East money not rolling over their treasury bills. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually happening in Spain and Italy right now. And they keep, they're able to issue debt, but basically they're selling their worthless debt to their own banking system. And the anybody that's a foreign holder of Spanish and Italian debt, uh, except for a few very brave souls, are saying, "Well, thank you, but I don't want the next edition," and they're not rolling. And of
Right.
course, a lot of them aren't rolling because uh, they have charters that say they can't be in subordinated debt,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to be a certain level of quality. And so anyway, we have Spain imploding right now. Italy's not far behind it. But our first slide shows what kind of tremendous stress is going on in Spain, and shows unemployment, overall unemployment, a little over 23 or 24%. Under 25 to 74 years, a little bit less than that, but under 25 years old, unemployment's 50%.
Really? That high, huh?
And those kids are looking for a future, and they're not very happy.
Oh, God.
So
That's bad.
you know, and so the proverbial S is hitting the fan,
Mm-hmm.
at least there. And then we know what's going on with the Spanish government debt, but the household debt in Spain, and this is the next slide, um, is like 200% of GDP. It's one of the highest in the world.
Worse than the U.S. even, huh?
Worse than the U.S., worse than the UK, and the UK is just you know a bug waiting for a windshield. But because of the depression, and there's no confidence that people have the ability to pay their debts. They've been I'll call it shrinking loans to households, and that's our second slide, and it shows that it's really been going on since the financial uh, crisis began in the middle of 2008, but it's accelerated to the point where um, they can't. All the loans are being called in. They can't roll over their loans. The private sector is being squeezed not only by lack of income, but lack of credit extension, and rightly so because they're all bankrupt. And then what I did was the next slide is showing the number of doubtful loans inside Spanish credit institutions, and it's almost 8% of total loans.
Really?
And well, most people are familiar with Tier One capital,
Hmm. Well,
which
most of
is
them aren't, but explain it to us as far as
Tier
bank
One
capital.
capital is your most liquid. It's like T-bills, cash equivalents. It's what you have to be able to have a depositor come and get their money when they demand it.
Hmm. So that's
But
like part of the reserve requirement for these
well, it's your
institutions,
highest quality reserves,
right?
and basically the bad loans are equal to their T1 capital.
Which
Tier One
means
capital,
they're
which means that
insolvent.
correct, and they're insolvent. They're all
Yeah.
if they marked any of their assets to market, the whole banking system in the United States and Europe would vaporize instantly. It's deeply bankrupt. But we hide behind a bunch of what I'll call regulatory illusions.
Hmm.
Obviously, politicians don't want to get blamed for it, and so they allow these people to work with opaque and dishonest balance sheets. But the next slide is really the big slide, and that is where we show the foreign holdings of Spanish government bonds as a percentage of bonds outstanding. And it used to be 50% of Spanish government bonds were held by foreigners. At the end of December, it was at 30%, and today it's probably, we don't have that number, but I would imagine it's 20 or 10%.
Really?
So there's huge runs. Well, I'll just say no one's rolling their notes. They can't get any outside funding. The only funding that's available is provided to them by their own domestic banking system, which is buying 50 or 60 billion dollars a month of them. And they borrowed the money from the LTRO, but you know, um, one, two, three, that LTRO money is just about gone.
So
So
they're
either
gonna.
either they have to do another LTRO,
Mm-hmm.
or the European Central Bank has to step in. And the European Central Bank said, well, we can start buying these bonds, and these prices are unjustified.
Right. So
Well,
is there going to be a
let's talk
bank
about.
run? What about bank runs from
Oh,
this?
that's already happening.
Hmm.
But that's a a breastback pitch and a lot of hot air.
Right.
And that guy better talk to Raleigh before he said it, because the market's going to test that immediately.
Hmm. Right.
And we have the same thing going on in Italy.
Uh huh.
And they may be too big to bail, but they're also too big to fail. And so Drachly's going to have to come up with some kind of a magical trick in the next, I would imagine, 30 days. It could be as long as 60.
Hmm.
But the funding crisis is back with a vengeance, and it's worse than ever. And uh, so on our next slide, then you'll see that Spanish and Italian bond yields are blowing out.
Right. So
And
where is helicopter Ben when you need him?
oh, he'll show up before it's over. I promise you.
Yeah.
Helicopter Ben's got that helicopter. It's already sitting there
The
warmed up.
rotors are spinning and he's
The
ready to
rotors are.
take off.
That's right. Okay. They were these. I call him Sisyphus or Atlas. He's he's not gonna. He's already said that he's completely committed to doing whatever it takes to save the financial system, even if it's indirectly.
Who was the one who was pushing the rock up the hill, and then he'd almost get to the top, and then the rock would fall back down, and he'd start over again? Which mythological uh, character was that? I can't remember for the life of me.
Might be Prometheus,
Prometheus?
or
Yeah.
it could be Sisyphus. I'm not sure.
I'll look that one up. But yeah, that's certainly what Helicopter Ben's doing. He's rolling that boulder up, and then he's just about to get to the top, to the promised land, and boom, it falls back down, and there he is again, pushing
Yep.
it back up. No rest for the weary.
No rest for the weary, and he won't have any rest for years to come because he really can't tell everybody how much he's got to print. But today, Zero Hedge had a report that said the European banking system just to get to stabilized state is 2.7 trillion euros. Okay, well
That's
that's the
insane.
banks. That's the banks. That doesn't include the sovereigns.
It's just, that's the tip. Yeah, it's Sisyphus. Okay. For those of you who didn't know, Sisyphus was a king punished by being compelled to roll an immense boulder up a hill only to watch it roll back down again and to repeat this throughout eternity. Luckily, the Ben Bernanke is not going to have to do it through eternity. He just has to do it until the system totally collapses and then find his bunker with the rest of them. And so it's probably a couple of years at most, but he doesn't quite have that kind of Herculean type effort throughout eternity. His days are numbered.
Yep, and we need to follow up on our gold and silver crash report from last week, and we were saying they really can't sell it because the people that are buying it expect delivery, and we're very close to having what I'll call a buy signal on weeklies and hopefully monthlies. But I think the the bottom is in. You can see great big head and shoulders bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
They're not quite active yet. There's some wedges that are about ready to get started as well. Um, and of course, like I said, ben, helicopter bend. Like you said, the rotors are going.
The rotors are going, man. The dust is kicking up, and he's ready to lift off. He's just waiting for the signal, and then he's going to go marching, flying off to oblivion, along with the dollar and all the other fiat currencies of the world. And the story's been written 100 times in history, but we never learn, because the one thing you learn from history is that people don't learn from history. So that's where we're at.
Well, it's a lot of interesting things. We keep seeing the dollar fail at about 80 cents,
Yeah, that seems to
and
be resistance there. Support, whatever.
we've seen a nice pullback in stocks, but who knows? People may be buying the dip, and but that was a nice short, violent episode there, and the stocks ultimately are going lower than you can imagine, but that's a story for another day. I also posted for all of the listeners on my new website, tedbits.com, some technical uh, analysis on gold in the stock market by my good friend Garrett Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll send that over to you as well
Great.
because it's definitely worth reading. And he would say that we're really near the very good top in the S&P, and he's got some good gold analysis that everybody should consider.
That's great. Yeah, well, the Dow broke 13,000. The Nasdaq's still around that 3, and it's up today, but hey, there's nothing real about this bull market. But as they say, stocks rise on a wall of worry, right? They climb a wall of worry. So,
Well, they're climbing something, but I don't think it's a wall of worry because, we've had stock market outflows of funds for 2 years. We've had declining volume,
mhm.
and there's no reason for stocks to be going up except for a group that's at, I think they're at 33 Liberty Street.
Is that where they are? Well, I know they have a hell of a cellar vault there because I've been to it. It's something that if you haven't been to, you really should go because you get to see 7,000 tons of gold. You don't know who owns it. You have no idea who actually the gold belongs to, but it's definitely there, and
Well,
they're
let's
not
just hope
telling.
that hopefully it's not tungsten filled bars.
You know, the reason why I don't think it's tungsten, and not that I would be able to tell the difference because you have to be an assayer to know that, and you have to really be able to run them through tests. The reason why is that the what they call the London Bank LBME good to deliver bars. They're 400 ounces and they're trapezoidal shaped, and the old fashioned US bars are just bricks basically. They're not angled edges. And a good chunk of the gold there are those old bars. So my gut feel tells me they probably wouldn't go to the trouble of counterfeiting those bars. They'd be doing the LBME bars. But who knows? You know, anything is possible.
And I guess I'd be remiss not to talk about yesterday's shocking $199 billion March deficit.
Who was shocked by that one?
Well, just, you're right, it gets old, but the idea that we can live in a country where no one's going to cut government spending and address the deficit. At least Spain and Italy are trying to cut their deficits and trying to address the problem, whereas we are doing none of the above.
Yeah, well, I've got a piece that I'm writing. It's going to be called The Golden Age of Municipal Bankruptcy, because that's what we're approaching here. And what's going to happen is that municipalities, hundreds, thousands of them around the country, will go bankrupt, but they're not so much going to go bankrupt just to repudiate their debt, which is always a good thing for a debtor to be able to wipe out debt. They're also going to reform all of their union contracts because in a Chapter 9 municipal bankruptcy, you don't have to get court approval to abrogate any contract, whether it's labor contracts, pensions, you name it. There's one case that has to be tested, which I know will make it, which basically it's going to be that a bankruptcy court judge will have the right to trump state constitutional law, meaning in a lot of states there's constitutional provisions that say you can't do anything to diminish retiree benefits. That will be struck down shortly, and after that you're just going to see a mass exodus for the bankruptcy court. And the other interesting thing about it is that it will enable municipalities to effectively dissolve their school systems and just give everybody a voucher. Once that happens, they'll just say, you know what, the school system, it's too much trouble, it's too expensive, it's failing, there are a bunch of incompetent schools, and we're just going to pay a third of it, and we'll send out vouchers, go find a school. I mean, that's what
Well,
we're coming down to here, you
well,
know.
from your lips to God's ears.
Oh, I'm telling you.
To think that the public schools and I'll call it the people that are the socialists that have dumbed down the American people. You saw the frightful speech that Obama made down in West Palm Beach.
Let's not mention him. This is This is a family show, and I prefer to stay away from topics like that. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He just sat there and he said, "You can, if we just tax these people a little more, we can have free college for you, and free health care for grandma, and free this and free that." And they all just, clapped. And I was reminded of a school of piranha.
Yeah, well, hey,
Okay, thou shalt not steal unless it's through the government.
Hey, what did H.L. Mencken say about elections? They're an auction of goods yet to be stolen, and that's what it's about. But the bankruptcy code, because the country's bankrupt, the states are bankrupt, the cities, counties, school districts, they're all bankrupt. I'd say 80% of them are going to be insolvent once this thing really hits. And at that time, they go to the bankruptcy court, and it's like going to Lourdes, and all your sins will be forgiven, and all your disease will be cured, and mass repudiation. What else can happen here, Ty? In end game here.
I somehow I think we're going to find out what else can happen more than we can ever imagine.
But in the end game, it always comes down to debt repudiation. One way or the other, whether it's inflated out of existence or it's defaulted out of existence, it always comes down to repudiation because no country ever pays its debts. No government, right?
They never do. It's all a big Ponzi scheme. It's all, buy some more tomorrow and we'll just roll it over, pay you what we owe you, and give you a little interest payment. But, that's a good point right there. When you have 2-year government bonds in the United States yielding you $2.80 a year per $1,000, or a 2-year German bond giving you all of 90 cents a year return.
I thought those were called bombs.
That's right.
Right? Bombs.
Yep.
And hey,
well, I'll call it what's going on this week's called the bomb or bond scare.
Yeah. Hey, and we didn't discuss one major thing that happened was last Thursday, was it, that that agency cut the U.S. debt rating from AA plus to AA? Egan Jones, right? And total news blackout. I think I read it in Pravda. I think that's where I heard about it. It didn't show up. Maybe Fox News had it, but outside of that, it wasn't. Do a Google search on USA debt cut, debt. What am I saying? Debt downgrade, and put in Egan Jones, and you will find next to no mainstream publications there. You won't see ABC, you won't see CBS, you won't see NBC. You certainly won't see the New York Times or the Washington Compost. No newspaper. The Wall Street Journal had a little article on it, but that was it. And that tells more about what's really going on in the world than anything else. A lot of times you can tell what people are doing and thinking by what they don't say rather than what they do say. On that note, Ty, till next week.
Okay, I guess I would also like to mention that I did a 4-part audio-visual series with Gordon T. Long on financial repression, and you can find that on my site. And it talks about the theft of everything, by governments, and what you have to do to protect yourself. And they're long, but they're good. Gordon and I do a great job, and I urge everybody to look at those too.
Yeah, we'll put them up on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And you can go there, hear other podcasts that Ty and I have done, as well as all of my other podcasts that are currently going or have been recorded in the past. There's hundreds of them, and we've got nonstop news going on there, 60 to 100 posts per day. All right, Ty, you be well.
Have a great weekend. I love you. I love you all. God bless our audience, and we hope to see you again next week.
All right, Ty, be well.
Thanks.